Welcome to the next module here where we're going to be looking at a fully AI automated YouTube presence. This module is for the people that want to create YouTube channels where essentially once you set up the Zapier flows, you can walk away and have it automatically push out content on your behalf. The purposes of this lesson is I wanted to give you a brief overview of what we're going to be jumping into. So make sure you have all 4 of those accounts created and all the APIs connected into Zapier, as this is going to allow you to take full advantage of what we're doing in today's course and apply ChatGPT in our solutions for whether making an automatic thumbnail, an automatic AI video, and so on. One of the most important tools that we plan on using in this course is going to be the scheduling tool by Zapier. This is going to allow us to essentially set up a automated social media schedule content calendar that's going to basically work in the background. So for example, I could set up a schedule where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon, it posts a new YouTube video along with a short as well. This is going to be really effective stuff here, as we're going to learn to not only use this schedule tool, but also use the paths tool by Zapier in order to create one Zap that's going to be able to encompass a whole social media calendar rather than creating multiple Zaps. And it's going to be a very effective way to save you time and optimize the way we approach our AI automated YouTube channels. I hope you're excited to dive into this module. This is completely new stuff. We're groundbreaking technology here using ChatGPT to really leverage it in creating content. You're going to learn a bunch of stuff here that you're not only going to be able to apply to your YouTube channel, but other things when it comes to Zapier and connecting apps. But without further ado, let's jump into our AI automated module here at Web Cafe. Welcome to probably one of the most important lessons in this module. We're going to be showing you how to build out a fully AI automated YouTube channel, more specifically a faceless AI automated YouTube channel. Make sure to check out all the lessons in this module as they are all interconnected. As always, you can find the Zap in the description below, but make sure you stay to the end because we're going to show you a very powerful tool and function so you can set up just one Zap that'll be able to post custom content on all days of the week. But for now, we're going to jump into one of the most important Zaps in this course. All right, so we are in our Zap. It's going to be called AI YouTube channel. And the purpose of this specific Zap is we're going to build out a food AI channel. Specifically, the content that is going to be given here is going to be a recipe or a food item that's being created. Some of the blocks used in this current Zap aren't going to be used in this specific video, but used in later videos in this module. So make sure you add all the blocks associated here. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's Zap. Okay, to start off, we're going to start off with a very simple trigger, which is going to be your scheduler. Like any good social media, we're going to make sure that we always be posting. And for our context, we're going to go ahead and say every day. We're going to go ahead and say continue. From here, we're going to go ahead and say whether you want to trigger on weekends or not. We're going to go ahead and say yes. And we're going to say the time we're going to trigger is just going to be noon. Obviously, whatever context you want to use, go ahead and go with that. We're going to go ahead and say test trigger. And then we're going to go ahead and add our first block here, which is going to be a ChatGPT block. So essentially, look at this block as the one initiating everything that's going to happen from here on out on this specific video. So whatever your niche is, this is kind of where you would build it out from here. For our purpose today, we're going to be building out a food niche. So we're going to go ahead and hit conversation, hit continue, continue. And the first block in this Zap we're going to say is generate a random food dish. And then we're going to put parameters. Don't repeat food items. And let's see if I can spell today. Don't repeat food items. We're going to go ahead and make sure we up our model. Actually, we can keep it 3.5. That is fine. We're going to go ahead and say food list as a memory key. The purposes of the memory key is to make sure it understands contextually what it said before. So in this context, since we've identified, hey, don't repeat past food dishes. If you say meatloaf, don't ever say meatloaf again. This is going to be important to make sure that every single video that is pushed out on your channel is unique content and you don't regurgitate past content, which obviously would cause issues with your viewers. So from here, we're going to go ahead and hit continue and see if it's sufficient enough. We might need to add more context here, but let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so it seems like it gave too much information here. We're going to go ahead and make sure it just generates the food item slash, thing we're going to be cooking here, as you'll see why that is important. So we're going to say, don't repeat food items, just generate the dish, no text before or after. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and add a 1 here. We want to refresh the memory key, so we're like in a new chat. It doesn't use this as context of what it said before, so we get a possible better structuring for its output. So let's go ahead and see what here. All right, perfect. It does a better structuring. That is just what we want. From here, we're going to add another ChatGPT block here, and we're going to go ahead and use this ChatGPT block for the purpose of building out the recipe. So we're going to go ahead and hit conversation. We're going to continue, and we're going to say, based off this food dish, semicolon parentheses, grab that food dish. We're going to say, generate a recipe on how to make it, include ingredients, and how to cook. All right, perfect. We're going to want to go ahead and up this one to model GPT-4 as we're dealing with a more complex situation here. Obviously, this could work with 3.5, but I just like upping it in these contexts. Then we're going to say food recipe as a memory key. And let's go ahead and see what the output would be in this context for this structuring. Okay, so as you see here, it was able to get the ingredients, but it obviously cut off. That's not going to be consistent enough for what we want to do here. So let's go ahead and break this down just a little bit so the output is consistent. We're going to say generate a recipe on how to make it. Generate a list of ingredients to make this dish. So essentially we're going to block this off so that we have a list of ingredients to make this dish, and then the next block here will be essentially how to cook the dish. So we're going to do that. We're going to make sure we add a 1 here to clear the chat. Let's start with a better structuring here, and then let's let GPT do the work. Okay, so it came up with another issue. Seems like it is still having issues with the output here. No worries. What we can do here is we're going to say generate a list of ingredients to make this dish. Just generate the ingredients, name, no text on how to prepare it, as some of the ingredients had like thinly sliced and stuff like that. We want to deal with that in a later block. So we're going to say generate a list of ingredients to make this dish. Just generate the ingredients name, no text on how to prepare it. We're going to go do that. We're going to add a 2 here to refresh the chat, and we're going to test this action again. All right, perfect. So we got our ingredients list here. Really good stuff. Now let's go ahead and create the block on how to cook it. So what we can do here, though, is we can go ahead and duplicate this. So there's a nice little trick here. You can duplicate it because we've already kind of pre-texted it and fine-tuned it to what we wanted to do. We can continue here. I'm going to say, based off this food dish, generate how to cook it. And then let's see if that is sufficient enough for GPT to handle. If it's not, we'll obviously fine-tune. As you'll notice through this tutorial, a lot of times with GPT, you just got to fine-tune your chats. You got to mess around with the outputs. But what's so great now is with that memory key is that we can ensure that every time this automation is to occur, it's going to be consistent on its output, and we won't have to worry about discrepancies in the future. Okay, so I had to do a little bit more fine-tuning for the chat in order to ensure that the output would come out. And I basically said just the instructions on how to cook it in 5 steps. Each step is a maximum 1 sentence. This keeps it consistent, keeps it well known, and keeps the details exactly how we want it for when the content will be ingested by your potential audience here. So from here, we're going to go ahead and add a storage block. And essentially what a storage block allows us to do is have the data that's been produced here be pushed off into another Zap. So in this context, the reason we're building out a storage block is so that we can essentially have it so we can put the recipe and how to cook it in the YouTube description. So from here, we're going to go ahead and say set value. And we're going to go ahead and say continue. We're going to set the key, which is going to be how the data is associated with. We're going to set the key to ingredient. We'll do ingredients, plural. We're going to go ahead and grab the value that was just created here, which was the ingredients. Let's go ahead and set up another storage block here for the cooking recipe. All right, so we're going to add another storage block here, do storage. So this is going to be a very valuable tool to use in other contexts as you get more familiar with Zapier. Being able to pass data between different flows comes into a lot of help when dealing with more complex situations. But from here, we're going to do instructions, and then we're going to add the value of the cooking instructions that we just created. All right, perfect. So the reasoning we're saving those is so we can pass that over to the description that we're going to later on edit in another flow. But from here, let's go ahead and start building out what's next. All right, so what is next for us is we're going to be building out the thumbnail in this flow. So we're going to add actually we're going to be adding an OpenAI block here. And the purposes of the OpenAI block is so we can access DALL to generate an image. Now, in theory, I'm gonna have a preset image here that I kind of already have a prompt for food. If you wanted to, you could add a GPT block here, setting up a variable prompt for the image to generate with. But for our context, I already have a prompt that I'm going to use here. This prompt was found on PromptBase. I'm going to go ahead and link it in the description below. But as you know, PromptBase is a marketplace for prompts. And as you see here, we got a professional food photography for gourmet. Then we have the brackets of the variable it's requesting. So we're going to go ahead and remove the brackets and input the one item here, which is the lamb. And from here, we're going to go ahead and make sure we increase the size of the thumbnail to 1024 by 1024. I'm going to hit continue here, and we're going to hit test action. If you want to see what your image would look like, all you need to do is copy this. You would open a new tab, and then you'd be able to essentially paste it. And this is going to be the image of the lamb dish that was in question. Really cool stuff. Not only is it important to have an image for your thumbnails, it's also important to have text. So we're going to have to go ahead and add another ChatGPT block here. And we're going to basically make the thumbnail text. As you know, you don't want to have too much text on a thumbnail, so we'll make sure we set up our context and parameters correctly here. We're going to say, based on this food dish, we're going to do semicolon parentheses, grab the food dish, and we're going to format this pretty nice here. So we're going to go ahead and essentially say, generate 1 to 2 words per line on how to cook this food dish. We're going to do parameters. We are looking for 3 lines in total. All right, perfect. We're going to go ahead and do GPT-4 as this is a little bit more complex of a request. And then we're going to go ahead and say thumb food for like thumbnail for text for food item. We're going to hit continue here. We're going to test this action. All right, so as you see there, we got a Marathi lamb, saute spices, layer rice. Let's go ahead and tweak this a little bit. Let's go to say generate 1 to 2 words per line on how to cook the food dish. Make sure to include the word recipe so it is clear to the individual what they're clicking into, that it is a recipe video. We're going to hit 1 here for restructuring on text, and we're going to retest this action. All right, perfect. This is what we're looking for. So lamb recipe, biryani preparation, cookie method. The next thing we want to add here is we want to make sure to separate the data into 3 separate blocks here for the thumbnail we're going to be creating. So we're going to go to formatter. We're going to be formatting text. We're going to choose text. We're going to hit continue, and then we're going to go ahead and do split. And from here, we're going to make sure we use the input of what we just created there, which is going to be that. And then we're going to go ahead and say the separator, and it's going to basically be new line, but I'm going to grab the exact formatting right now. I'm going to go ahead and paste that, and then we're going to segment it so that basically all are separate fields. From here, we're going to test this action, and then basically every single one of those lines should be a separate variable, which will come into a good use case here when we build out the banner bear image of it. For now, I'm just going to add the banner bear block. We will be creating the banner bear thumbnail later in this video. But for now, essentially, this is where we're going to be creating the thumbnail that's going to encompass the image we just generated and the text we just generated. But we'll jump into that a little later in this tutorial. Let's go ahead and continue on building out this flow. All right, so the next thing we need to add here is going to be a storage block. And the specific use case of this storage block is going to be basically getting the banner bear's ID, which is basically referencing the image. We're essentially going to need this thumbnail for another Zap flow, because one big thing about AI automation when it comes to YouTube is Zapier can do basically 90% of the work. But when it comes to thumbnails and automatically uploading thumbnails, we're going to have to use a slightly different software working along with Zapier. But you'll see what I mean when I get to it. For now, we're just going to hit continue here, and we're going to hit cook thumb, and then essentially the value, which I believe I don't think I have access to it. I won't, but we'll put the banner bear ID. That will make more sense as we go. Let's go ahead and rename this. I'll rename everything here, so when you go ahead and add it to your project, you won't get too confused by all the generic names here. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and start building out the actual speech that is going to occur in our video here. We're going to do another ChatGPT block, and this is going to be the introduction of the video. So we're going to do that. We're going to say based on this food dish, and the fact. Actually, we'll just do based on this food dish because we just want to start simple first. Go like this. Ahead and added the next couple sentences here. So I said, give an introduction to a YouTube video explaining how we are going to showcase how to cook this food item today. And then basically setting a cap at 2 sentences because we don't want this to drag on. It's just the introduction, like, hey, we're cooking this lamb dish. Like, this is essentially what's going to be happening. Here's the context for the video. We're going to up that to GPT-4. We're going to do intro, food. And from here, we're going to hit continue. And we're going to test this action. Perfect. So as you see here, hey, food lovers, in today's video, we'll be talking about the delicious journey to master the art of cooking the irresistible lamb biryani. I'm probably butchering how you say that. Perfect to impress your friends and family. Now, in the context that you'll be using captions in the video, we're going to want to format these quotation marks out. So I'm going to show you that real quick. We're just going to add another formatter block here. Format, and then we're going to be obviously manipulating text. So we're going to choose the event of text. And continue here. We're going to transform, and we're going to use the function of replace. We're going to grab the thing that was just generated. We're going to do find the quotation marks. We're going to replace it with empty space, and then now it should not have the quotation marks. This will make more sense when we get to Cynthia and setting up the actual AI video that's going to be associated with the script. But for now, you know how to essentially get rid of quotation marks if that becomes a nuisance. Okay, so we're going to add another ChatGPT block here. And what I like to do in these kind of videos is give them a quick fact or a quick, teaser of what's about to be in the video. So we're going to go ahead and just create a quick fact or a quick teaser about the dish we're making today. All right. Okay, so we're going to do based on this food dish, semicolon, parentheses. And that's why I showed you earlier in this video why that very first ChatGPT block is so fundamental. So whatever niche you're in or whatever avenue you're going down, you're typically going to be referencing that first block for everything else because that kind of sets the tone of what the topic of the video is. So typically what you want to do is make sure that first block is very general, very concise, and straight to the point. So you don't find yourself, going off track, or it isn't like in flow of what a video should be from start to finish. So I went ahead and typed out, give a bonus tip on how to cook, limit to max of 1 sentence, parameters, talk to me like a human. Parameters I want to throw in there real quick, just as a little quick tip. If you find yourself dealing with ChatGPT and the output is not consistent or not how you like it, you can add that little parameter tool there. And on top of that, instead of being so specific, I wanted to give like a general idea here. So just give a bonus tip on how to cook, which I think will be more practical in this kind of format, in this kind of context. From here, we're just going to call it cook tip. And we can go ahead and up our model to GPT-4. As you see here, our tip was add saffron to the rice water for a fragrant and vibrant golden color in the finished lamb dish we're dealing with here. That's really good stuff here. Let's go ahead and dive into the deep dish here, where we're going to essentially now build out the main script that shows us how to cook the lamb dish. Now that we've added the cooking tip right after the introduction, let's go ahead and jump into the meat of this video, which is going to be essentially explaining how to cook and the cooking process. So let's start off with another ChatGPT block here, and we're going to go ahead and rename this ChatGPT block to it starts with ingredients. And essentially the idea here, let's go to spell this. The idea here is whatever you're beginning, whatever niche you're in, essentially, you want to structure it basically in 3 main parts typically. So for us, we're going to probably do start with ingredients, and then the other 2 parts will be talking about the cooking phase, and then the last part will just be a nice little conclusion, as you see here. So we're going to go ahead and say conversation, and we're going to go ahead and put out a nice little start of ingredients section of this video. We're going to say based off this food dish. As always, we reference the initial topic generator here, and we're going to go topic of video, lamb. And I went ahead and renamed all these blocks so it's easier for you to digest when you add it to your own project. We're going to say generate an introduction, or generate a response saying how you will need ingredients to create this dish. And then on top of that, we're going to add a little bit of parameters here. Let's go ahead and add a parameter that we had earlier of talk like a human, as we want to make this as easy digestible as possible. And then on top of that, we're going to add one more parameter. Just add a little indentation there. We're going to say this part of the script is this part of the script. This is part 1 of the script telling the user to check out the YouTube description for the full list of ingredients for this dish. I'm going to say a max of 2 sentences. So essentially the idea here is we're going to start off with the first scene after the introduction, the cooking tip. We're going to do a little bit of an introduction like, hey, these are the ingredients you need for this dish. Go ahead and check out the description below and you'll be able to get, copy it or copy it to your notes and so on. All right, so as you see here, we got our little generation here to create the delicious lamb biryani. I'll need a list of ingredients. Be sure to check out the YouTube description for a full list of ingredients for the required scrumptious dish. Good stuff here. I added a memory key, and I actually had to up my model to GPT-4 in order to execute this. So on top of that, let's go ahead and do part 2. So we're going to go ahead and add another ChatGPT block here. We're going to go ahead and rename this to part 2. We're going to choose the conversation as the event. We're going to continue here. And then we're going to go ahead and add our user message. What's great, though, is we can go ahead and just copy this. We're going to Command A, Command C. From here, we're going to Command V this. And we're going to just edit this slightly. So one thing we need to add here is the fact that this is part 2. So we need to make sure we reference part 1. We're going to go ahead and do part 1 here. We're going to go make sure we input part 1 that we just created here. So what's nice is now you understand that every single one of these slides can reference previous slides so that the conversation flows throughout the video. So we're going to do part 1 here, generate part 2, which goes over the beginning steps to creating this dish. And then we're going to go ahead and do there. We're going to say a max of 3 sentences, period. And then we're going to make sure we spell this correct. Make sure we up our model to GPT-4. Okay, so we got our nice little part 2 here. The issue is that we have part 2 identified, which we don't want to have, obviously, in the dialogue. So what we want to do here is we're going to go ahead and come back up here. I'm going to say, don't mention the part. And let's see if that's sufficient enough. As always, we're going to go ahead and clear the memory key. So we start with a new chat. So it doesn't have that, previous output as context of how to structure it. We want a new way to structure it. Let's go ahead and let it generate. All right, there we go. So as you see here, we jump into part 2 of this video and we got our nice little max of 3 sentences. Let's go ahead and save us some more time here. And all you need to do is come up here is to duplicate. And then we're going to go ahead and rename this to part 3. From here, we're going to go ahead and open that. Now that we're in it, we're going to go ahead and make sure we do part 2, semicolon, parentheses, and obviously we want to identify part 2. So as you see here, this gives us a lot of context that GPT is going to continue the flow, understand what's said before, so it sounds very natural. We're going to say generate part 3, which is going to be, which goes over the final steps. Say the final steps to creating the dish, a max of 3 sentences. Don't mention the parts. I want to say talk like a human. We like that. We can go ahead and make sure we do part 3, food. And then from here, everything else looks good. So we're going to hit continue and we're going to retest this action. One thing I want to point out is as you notice in the parentheses that data from part 1 and part 2 is being identified, and then it understands that it needs to generate part 3, which we'll get here pretty soon. So what I did is I went ahead and written up, generate a conclusion script saying goodbye to a YouTube video. Thank you for watching. Encompass in the script that our cooking channel provides education for cooking food. Like and subscribe if you feel like you've learned something today, and then parameters, a max of 4 sentences. You can obviously add more context here. Maybe you want to put in your YouTube channel name. Maybe you want to have a CTA for a specific thing in the description of your video and so on. From here, we're just going to head and hit continue. We're going to retest this action, and this should be the final part of this YouTube video, at least script-wise. All right, great. So as you see here, we got our conclusion script for the video. Now, one thing I want to show you how to do as well is I'm going to show you how to make sure you know how to integrate images in your videos as well. So for this context, we're going to go with an AI generated image. And more specifically, we're just going to have another image in the video showcasing what the dish could possibly look like. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate our thumbnail image block here. I'm going to come over here to outline, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it all the way to the bottom here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and little X here, come down here, and let's go ahead and rename this to image in video. And then this is essentially going to show you how to integrate images in your video, which could be very useful in any context for whatever you're creating on your niched YouTube channel. I'm going to hit retest action here, and then we should be able to generate a different version of the AI image that we're using from our thumbnail. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and add the final stages to the Zapier flow. We're going to first add a Cynthia block here, and essentially this is going to be what's going to generate the AI generated video. We're going to do from template. We're going to hit continue here, continue, and then we'll build this out. But for now, let's go ahead and add another block here, which is going to be ChatGPT. And essentially what I'm building out here is that the first Cynthia block is going to be used as like the long form content, you know, the landscape version. Now I'm going to add another feature here because we built out already so much context. Let's go ahead and make sure we build out a version of this that is a YouTube short, you know, shouting out that this video just got created. So we're going to go ahead and hit conversation here. And we're going to go ahead and rename this to YouTube short. So I went ahead and put in a prompt here. And the idea essentially is that based off this food dish, which is the food dish that's going to be the topic of the video, generate a script saying, basically saying, asking watchers to watch this YouTube video. And context, this is a promo video to convince people to go to your channel and learn about cooking food. And then we put a parameter of 3 sentences max. Essentially, this is going to be the script that's used for the short that we push out automatically on our YouTube channel. From here, we're going to go ahead and do GPT-4, and we're going to do short food. And we're going to hit continue here and test that action. Perfect. So we got our script for our short, craving the delicious lamb. Look for no further. Head over to our YouTube channel to watch a step-by-step video tutorial and so on. Let's go ahead and add our final block to this Zapier flow, which is going to be another Cynthia block, but this is going to be used for the purpose of making that short. We have now officially created our Zapier flow when it comes to creating a AI YouTube channel. Obviously, you're going to want to diversify your content. So maybe you want to change the topic of the video, the style of the video, and so on. But for now, you have an idea of essentially how to build out an entire Zapier flow to build out an AI YouTube channel. Now, let's go ahead and start filling in these blocks so it executes perfectly. The first block we need to fill out here is going to be the thumbnail. So let's jump over to Banner Bear. Once you're in Banner Bear, let's jump over to our projects. Let's go to essentially create a project specific to this. We have YouTube course already created here. We're going to create a template, and we're going to use a custom template as they don't have thumbnails for YouTube as a default option. We're going to do a width of 1280 and a height of 720. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to hit save here. And then from here, we can go ahead and hit edit template. And we can just start creating our YouTube thumbnail of how we want this to look. So to begin, let's go ahead and add a couple layers here. The first layer I'm going to add is going to be the image layer. And this is going to be from that AI generated image that we had earlier. So I'm going to use image rectangle here. And then I'm going to go ahead and say upload image. Perfect. So the image has been uploaded. I'm going to just go ahead and drag this. And then as we see here, this doesn't look bad at all. So this is going to be the AI generated image here. Drag this right here. And then let's go ahead and add the thumbnail text to this so we can have the text that we created in our Zapier flow show up here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a rectangle here. And let's go ahead and just expand it all the way. If I can grab it here, perfect. And you can go ahead and, you know, angle it if you want to rotate it and so on. Let's choose a different color here, something a little bit more welcoming, like maybe something like this. And then essentially, I'm going to go ahead and move this over here a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and rename our image here because this is going to be essentially we grab the variable. Let's go ahead and rename this layer to food item. And then the rectangle, we don't need to rename because it's just a background. Now let's go ahead and add our 3 pieces of text. All right, perfect. So we got our first piece of text here. Let's go ahead and change the font size a little bit bigger. And then we're going to want to see about changing the color here. See if white would show up well here. If not, okay, we'll keep it black. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we have this little box here, not go over the image, as we don't want to obviously bleed over the image for this context. And we're going to go ahead and rename this to line 1. And then we can go ahead and duplicate. And we can rename this to line 2. And this will make more sense as we jump over to Zapier. But for now, this is essentially, we're identifying each one as a separate layer so that this comes out perfect. We're going to do line 3. And let me say rename line 3. And just so we can get a better idea, let's go ahead and just center this. So we're going to do horizontal alignment, center, horizontal alignment, center, and center. All right, perfect. And then I want to go ahead and increase the text a little bit more as this is a little small. So let's just see like 68. All right, perfect. Or maybe we want the middle part to be bigger than the other ones. So let's go ahead and do that. Make sure we save this template. And we're going to say thumbnail food. This is how we're going to call it in our Zapier function. All right, so this is a very simple template. Obviously, you can get a little bit more crazy, but for the purposes of this video, this is all we really need to do. We have our image variable. We have our text variable. Now let's jump back over to Zapier and connect all the dots here. Okay, we are back in Zapier. I'm going to go ahead and hit thumbnail design. Let's choose an event, and we're going to say create image. We're going to continue. We're going to choose the YouTube course account. Perfect. And then let's let it continue here. The template ID is going to be the one we just created. So it should show up here, thumbnail food, perfect. And then as you'll notice, it's going to ask for basically the variables we just identified, which would be line 1, line 2, and line 3. And from my understanding, those should be in order. They are in order from top to bottom. So first, let's go ahead and grab the image variable, which is going to be what was created before it, and this block right up here. And then we're going to go ahead and grab line 1. And that's why we formatted our text. So boom, output 1, come back down here, output 2, and then finally output 3. All right, perfect. So now we have officially created our thumbnail. This shouldn't work because I may need to retest this variable up here in order to make sure that link is live still. But let's go ahead and test it real quick. All right, so let me go ahead and retest this real quick. As you'll notice, when you work with DALL and AI generated images, the duration that the link lasts is only going to be like 30 minutes, which is not an issue because obviously automation, it's going to grab the image right away. You have no worry about any delay. But from now, this is the image that was just created. The image that was just created. Let's see what it would look like in thumbnail format. Paste it into that new tab. And as you see, there we go. So we have the 3 pieces of text. All of them were separated by our formatter and works out perfectly. Then we have the image that we just created put onto that text. So now this could possibly be your thumbnail. Obviously, design your thumbnail how you want your YouTube videos to look like. But now you have created a template for YouTube thumbnails. From here, we're going to want to make sure that we add our banner ID that we just created. And the purpose of adding the banner ID is that we're going to use this as a reference. And this is it right here for when we create out the flow. So it automatically uploads the thumbnail to our YouTube videos. So we don't even have to do any work in our backend. So we'll go ahead and test that action. And it works. So perfect. Let's get to the final step in this specific lesson. I know it's long, but this is the most important lesson in this entire course. Now let's get into the step of essentially creating the template for the long form content of this video and then the short form content of this video. So once you're in your Cynthia account, we're going to go over to library. We're going to say templates, and we're going to create a new template. And this template specifically is going to be our cooking food template. So this template is going to be the one that we associate with that entire Zap we just built out. So we're going to make sure that all our variables connect like effectively and that, you know, everything is interlinked. And so every time it generates using this template, there is no hiccups. Okay, so in order to begin, we're going to go ahead and add some scenes here. In total, I am looking at around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scenes. So one thing about Cynthia is that either you can start with scratch or you can look at templates that are already being created by Cynthia, which is always helpful. So let's go ahead and just grab some templates that's already been created for our editing purposes. So we can go ahead and add this as the first template for the introduction, essentially, that we created earlier. And then let's go ahead and just delete that. And let's add some more scenes here and see what works best for us. All right, so I went ahead and just, researched around, and these are the scenes that I got. I like the formatting. You can go ahead and research yourself. A bunch of different types of formats and templates that you can be found in Cynthia. Let's go ahead and start off by first choosing our main avatar here. So I'm gonna go ahead and say replace avatar. And that is me, but that's not who we want to do. We'll just say Alex for today's video. And let me go ahead and just add Alex to all these different slides real quick. So all you need to do is click this, replace avatar, Alex, and go ahead and proceed from there. Now, when you come to slides that basically have no avatar, the avatar is still there. All you need to do is click avatar up here. Make sure you click Alex. And then for this context, I'm going to just do voice. I don't need to have this individual's face actually on there. And then for everything else, I'm just going to go ahead and use the default and go from there. The next thing I'm going to do is ensure that all the voices are the same. So we're going to say apply new voice to all female avatars, which in this context, we'll go ahead and go with the recommended voice of engaging. And then every single voice from here on out should be engaging as seen here. And that's good stuff. All right, the next step that is always useful in all these videos is we want to make sure that our color scheme is unanimous throughout. So let's go ahead and update all the color schemes for all these different slides here. So that is as simple as just going here and clicking the correct fill. And honestly, let's stay with this color scheme from the first slide here and make it unanimous throughout all the slides here. So for example, this is sufficient, but maybe we want to change the background here to the orange that we had there. Okay. From here, we can go ahead and you can add a logo if you want to. I'm going to delete that. Come over here, and then we're going to change this orange here to the color that we're looking for here. Perfect. I'm going to remove this as we don't need that. And then we definitely want to change this. So we're going to go ahead and change this right there. And then we'll go ahead and grab our secondary color that was founded here in the background. And we're going to go ahead and copy that. Bring that over here. And I'm going to go ahead and do this for the rest of the video. Now let's start inserting some variables, changing the formatting and so on so we can get some really good content going on here. I'm going to fly over here real quick. The first thing I want to do is set up just a simple variable here. And we're just going to call it dish. And this is how you identify variables in Cynthia. So by me identifying dish, essentially later I want to put in the main topic of whatever dish is being created here. So in this context, it would be dish. And then we're going to basically put a subline of how to cook. And that's going to be a fixed variable. We're going to go ahead and delete that. So now when I call upon this, as you see in the Zapier flow, we're going to be able to insert a variable in there. So that's nice. The first variable we're going to have is going to be 2 curly brackets. And then we're going to make sure, or is it might be these. Okay, perfect. It's just 1 curly bracket. And we're just going to say intro, another curly bracket. And then we're going to go ahead and see. So it is actually 2 curly brackets. Once you've created that, it will look like this. And essentially default value would just be intro. This is where we're going to start plugging in our scripts. If you want to add fixed text here, you could go ahead and do that. Say, let's get to it. So after the variable ChatGPT script we create, you want to have like some type of like fixed thing that it's always said throughout every single video. You can add it there. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to just have it. So basically the entire video is AI generated when it comes to the script. So our first script is intro. The next one is the cooking tip. So we do curly brackets. We're going to say cook tip. Curly brackets again, and then I'll do that. And then from here, we can go ahead and add our cooking tip. So we're going to go ahead and do curly brackets, tip of cook, curly brackets again. So then we're going to be able to not only insert the cooking tip as a speech, but also insert it as a piece of text. The last thing I want to do here for this slide is we're going to want to make sure we change our background here so it isn't just skyscrapers, because that does not look right. So let's go ahead and see what we can do there. So that was a little bit of an overlay there. And let's go ahead and see if we can change this real quick. All right, we're gonna go ahead and use this. It shows a bunch of different spices, which is cool. We're gonna go ahead and add our overlay back. And then now we should have a little bit of a video looping in the background as that cooking tip comes up. Let's go ahead and proceed to the next slide here, which is gonna be our, explain part 1. So in explain part 1 is just kind of like the ingredients. So I'm gonna say ingredients, or we're gonna say, get your list ready. And then we're going to go ahead and add a subtitle here, YouTube description. Just add a little bit more context here. And then we're going to go ahead and say for our first part, we're going to expo 1. So make brackets as well. Again, obviously use variables that you can recognize when you're using it in Zapier. So if that is not recognizable to you, try a different type of input variable there. But for now, that is sufficient of what we want here. Let's go to the second level here. And this right here is going to be interesting because this is where we're going to learn how to add that AI image. The first thing I need to do for this is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this background media as we don't need that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the image that we're going to be using. This is very important. Whatever your dimensions are when it comes to the image, make sure to maintain it here. So for us, it's 1024 by 1024. So let's go ahead and upload that AI image real quick. Once the image is uploaded, we're just going to go ahead and drag it here. Like that. And then this works like any type of editing software that you're familiar with. You can just kind of right click and we're going to say send to back. And then from here we have our image, but it's not a variable yet. So we're going to have to make it a variable. We're gonna go ahead and hit these three little brackets here. We're gonna say add variable, and we're gonna say showcase food. And then essentially now we can grab and add data from the back end of Zapier and upload different images for every single video. That's really good to know. We're gonna go ahead and add our brackets here. We're gonna say expo 2. And then from here, we're gonna go ahead and say this could be a variable text if you wanna make another GPT block, but we're gonna just say let's cook together. Perfect. From here, we're gonna go ahead and delete this little logo. And then the next slide, I went ahead and changed a different type of style here. So that was a voiceover. This is going to be just, straight talking to you. And all we need to do in this context is going to be bracket, expo 3, bracket. And now we get to our final slide here, which is going to be our conclusion slide. And we can go ahead and add a bracket, CON, and then bracket. Now, one thing you'll notice here is a delay. So you can add a delay timer. Typically at end of videos, maybe you want to add a delay timer to like showcase, hey, like watch this video or watch this playlist. So you'll have a nice little delay timer here. There's other stuff you can do here, such as gestures. So for example, I could have the AI avatar nod with head yes, head no, eyebrows up, and so on. So for the purposes of this video, we'll go it so that at the end of the intro, the avatar puts a head yes nod, which is going to be nice. From here, though, we can go ahead and jump through it all. And we're going to go ahead and just change this to let's get cooking. We're going to have parentheses. You can add a logo here if you wish to. You can add your email and your website if you want. Or you can just do whatever you want for your final page that you feel is most effective for your niche and your YouTube video. But overall, we have basically finished our YouTube template here. One thing we can add is music. So this music will be played throughout the video. So maybe we want to add, let's see what we got. You can choose between all these different musics, but for now, we're not going to do that. You can also add scene transitions, which is pretty interesting. So I could add a scene transition here of a fade, and then basically it goes by each one. With a different type of scene transition. That can always be an effective way to make sure the user is engaged while watching the video. But overall, we have created our template for the long form content of our Zapier flow. So next, all we need to do is come up here to publish. I like including captions. That always helps with people who want to read along rather than just listen. And from there, we can go ahead and just hit publish template. So we have created our long form content. Now let's create the short version of this. So all we need to do is hit create template again. This is going to be a little bit faster, and we're going to just do short cooking template. And then from here, what we know about shorts is obviously it's a vertical orientation. So what you'd want to do is you'd want to shrink our avatar, or maybe not use an avatar at all. Shrink our avatar here, put it in the center, as we're going to be using a software that essentially automatically, renders it in the correct orientation. And then we're going to go ahead and just, call the script short food, semicolon, or bracket. And then from here, we can go ahead and mess around a little bit with the background. So let's go ahead and just change it to something like a light red is good. Now, one thing I like doing personally is if you were to do short content like this and you're basically referring to like, hey, watch this video, let's go ahead and automatically upload the thumbnail in this short as well. To do so, make sure you download that example thumbnail that you have previously from your Zap, and then let's go ahead and just go to media, upload media. All right, perfect. So we have the thumbnail here. It is important you grab the thumbnail download image from the template we created, because that's going to have the dimensions that are correct. So when you scale and you don't have to come back to this, it looks perfect. But we're going to have the thumbnail at the top. Then we're going to have the AI avatar talk about that little short script you created. But overall, that's all you really need to do for your shorts version of this content. Obviously, you can add a bunch more stuff here, but for now, we are going to go ahead and just make sure we do one more thing. Let's go ahead and add a variable here, and we're going to say thumb short. And then from here, all we need to do is hit publish template. And we're going to go ahead not to add captions because we're formatting it as a vertical orientation. You don't want the captions to look cut off, and we're going to hit publish template. So now that we're back in our Zapier flow, let's go ahead and connect the dots here. So the first step is we're going to go ahead and get a template ID. In order to do so, we're going to go back to Cynthia. We're going to go hit these three little ellipses, and we're going to say copy ID. Come back here, and we're going to go ahead and paste our ID. Now, one sad thing about Cynthia is that it doesn't have the ability to automatically grab the variables in the video. Therefore, we're going to have to do a lot of copy and pasting back and forth. I'm going to go ahead and shorten that for you and just do it automatically. So All right, there you go. So I got all the variables from that video. Two things to point out. First, don't use the brackets in the template data here. It won't be able to read it correctly. And the second thing is make sure you label them so you can understand it when you're over to the Zap, because you could get confused if you just do like 1, 2, 3, and you don't really have any context of what each one means. So to start off, the dish was from that first screen there that essentially was supposed to be the variable text of the dish we're going to be creating, which is going to be the lamb. The intro was the intro script that we created here earlier, and we're going to go ahead and make sure we add no quotations as we don't want that in the captions. The tip of cook was on that second slide there, where essentially we gave a little tip, and then let's go ahead and find cooking tip. Perfect. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same variable. So you can go ahead and see it as text version and as audio version. And then from here, we're going to do expo 1. Luckily, we went ahead and already identified that with star of ingredients. And then the showcase food was the image data. So instead of using the thumbnail image, we're going to go ahead and use the image in video in order to show differentiation between the thumbnail image content and then the video content that can really give diversity to your overall content that you have on the channel. Then we're going to go to part 2 here for expo 2, and then we're going to go expo 3 for part 3. And then finally, for con, we're going to do conclusion. So we're going to add that. Perfect, perfect. And then this is important. We want to make sure we add a callback ID, as this is just stage 1 of an AI automated YouTube channel. There's going to be other zaps associated here. So what we're going to go ahead and call this is cooking long. And then essentially for the callback ID for the other one, we're going to do cooking short. This will make more sense as you jump further into this module. But for now, just go ahead and put a callback ID that you'll recognize. We're going to hit continue here, and we're not going to test the action yet because it's still publishing over on Cynthia. But let's go ahead and build out our second template here, which is going to be for the short form. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is for the long form, let's go ahead and just add a couple of context here when it generates over on the Cynthia side. So we're going to add the dish being created and then do square brackets, and we're going to put long. So I understand when it's being generated that, okay, this is the long form, and then we're going to have the short form over here. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. Let's do the dish being created here, and then let's go ahead and put in square brackets short. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna grab the template ID on Cynthia, and I'm gonna grab the variables from Cynthia. So I went ahead and grabbed the template ID and the two variables we're dealing with there, which is the short food and then the thumb short. So short food was obviously that little script we created right before this, and then the thumb short was the image of the thumbnail of the main video. Which is great, is all we need to do is come over here and we can grab it directly. That's already being generated in this flow. I always suggest going with JPEG as it is a smaller file size. From here, we're going to do cooking short as our callback ID. We're going to hit continue here. And let's go ahead and just test both of these actions in order to see if our final version of the content looks good. Just as a side note, when you want to see the processing time, you can go ahead and click this little logo here, and then that'll tell you what percent it is at before you can basically click publish and start actively pushing towards different templates or different content towards these templates. So keep that in mind. Don't automatically just push a video towards it because you might get an error. Let it fully generate the template that you just created. Once it is done, you'll be able to see a nice little logo like this. Let's go ahead and test these actions. So I'm going to go ahead and hit test action here. And this is going to be sending all the data towards Cynthia, towards that specific template we just created. And then let's go ahead and test the action for our short version as well. So I'm going to come over here and I will say in progress. That's how you know it's working. Let's test this action as well. And let's see what it looks like on Cynthia's dashboard. To access these videos, just simply click videos right here. And then you will see them currently generating. And as you see, we got our variable of the dish and we got the short and long version. Once these are both generating, let's go ahead and check out both. I'll leave them in the description below so you can check them out personally, and we'll be able to kind of wrap up today's lesson on how to make an AI YouTube channel in this context. So when a video is done processing, you won't see a little load screen here. You'll just get a straight icon. You just can go ahead and click it, and then you can press play. Really cool stuff. I'm going to go ahead and share this in our description below so you can check it out yourself. But this is going to be the first step towards making a short version of the YouTube content. All right, so now you know how to build out a specific Zap flow in order to create the content that will then be used on your AI YouTube channel. Make sure to check out the other lessons here, as I'm going to show you how to automatically upload these videos, automatically add them to playlists, thumbnails, and on top of that, add SEO titles and descriptions. and so on. So check out the other lessons here, and I'll see you there.